Hari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 7, Text 19 to 20. I need the book. Atma Nityo Vyaya Shuddha Eka Kshetra Gya Ashraya Avikriya Sva Drig Hetur Vyapako Sangi Anavrataha Atma Nityo Vyaya Shuddha Eka Kshetragya Ashrayah Avikriya Swadrighetur Vyapako Sangyanavrataha Atma Nityo Vyaya Shuddha Eka Kshetragya Ashrayah Avikriya Swadrighetur Vyapako Sangyanavrataha Atma Nityo Vyaya Shuddha Eka Kshetragya Ashraya Avikriya Swadrighetur Vyapako Sangyanavrataha Anybody else? Online? Tapas Peru?
Atmanita Vayoshuddha Eko Khetro Gyano Ashraya Abhikriya Shadriga Hetu Vyapako Shangi Anabrita
Atma, the spirit soul, the part of the personality of Godhead. Nityaha, without birth or death. Avyayaha, with no possibility of dwindling. Actually, first I'll just chant the second verse just on my own. Etair dvadashabir vidvan atmano lakshanai parai aham mametya sadbhavam dehado mohajam tyajet. Okay. Shuddhaha, without the material contamination of attachment and detachment. I see, aversion, yeah, okay, yeah. Detachment in this case, meaning aversion. Well, is that what you have in your book? Aversion? Oh, okay, okay. I see, okay, okay. Ekaha, individual. Kshetragyaha, one who knows and is therefore different from the material body. Ashrayaha, the original foundation. And then the footnote for this one is, without the shelter of the spirit soul, the material body cannot exist. That's why it's called the original foundation. Avikriyaha, not undergoing changes like the body. And the footnote for this one is, as already explained in the last verse, the fruits and flowers of a tree take birth, exist, grow, transform, dwindle, and die according to seasonal changes, but the tree, through all these changes, remains the same. Similarly, the Atma is free from all changes. Svadrik, self-illuminated. And the footnote for this one says, one does not need to make the soul prominent. It is automatically prominent. One can very easily understand that in the living body there is a spiritual soul. Hetuhu, the cause of all causes. Vyapakaha, spreading throughout the body in the form of consciousness. Asangi, not depending on the body. Free to transmigrate from one body to another. Anavrataha, not covered by material contamination. Etaihi, by all these. Dvadashabhihi, 12. Vidvan, a person who is not foolish, but fully aware of things as they are. There's one devotee who I accept as somewhat of a Shiksha guru. His name is Vidvan Gauranga Prabhu. So Gauranga, who is a person who is not foolish, but fully aware of things as they are, as Gauranga Mahaprabhu certainly is. Atmanaha, of the spirit soul. Lakshanaihi, symptoms. Paraihi, transcendental. Aham, I am this body. Mama, mine. Everything in relation with this body, in relationship with this body is mine. Iti, thus. Asat bhavam, a false conception of life. Deha ado, identifying oneself with the material body and then with one's wife, children, family, community, nation, and so on. I was testing you. Mohajam, produced from illusory knowledge. Tyajet, must give up. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Atma refers to the Supreme Lord or the living entities. Both of them are spiritual, free from birth and death, free from deterioration, and free from material contamination. They are individual, they are the knowers of the external body, and they are the foundation or shelter of everything. They are free from material change, they are self-illuminated, they are the cause of all causes, and they are all-pervading. They have nothing to do with the material body, and therefore they are always uncovered. With these transcendental qualities, one who is actually learned must give up the illusory conception of life in which one thinks, I am this material body, and everything in relationship with this body is mine. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 15.7, Lord Krishna clearly says, Mamaivam sho jiva loke jiva bhutaha. All the living entities are part of me. Therefore, the living entities are qualitatively the same as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the leader, the supreme among all the living entities. In the Vedas, it is said, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanash Chaitananam. The Lord is the chief individual living entity, the leader of the subordinate living entities. Because the living entities are parts or samples of God, their qualities are not different from those of the Supreme Lord. The living entities have the same qualities as the Lord, just as a drop of seawater is composed of the same chemicals as the great sea itself. Thus, there is oneness in quality, but a difference in quantity. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by understanding the sample, the living entity, because all the qualities of God exist in a minute quantity in the living entities. There is oneness, but God is great, whereas the living entities are extremely small. Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan, Kata Upanishad 1-20. The living entities are smaller than the atom, but God is greater than the greatest. Our conception of greatness may be represented by the sky because we think of the sky as being unlimitedly big, but God is bigger than the sky. Similarly, we have knowledge that the living entities are smaller than atoms, being 1/10,000th the size of a tip of a hair. Yet the quality of being the supreme cause of all causes exists in the living entity as well as in the personality of Godhead. Indeed, it is due to the presence of the living entity that the body exists and bodily changes take place. Similarly, it is because the Supreme Lord is within this universe that the changes dictated by material laws occur. The word ekaha, meaning individual, is significant. As explained in Bhagavad Gita 9.4, Matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavastitaha. Everything material and spiritual, including earth, water, air, fire, sky, and the living entities, exists on the platform of the Spirit Soul. Although everything is an emanation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should not think that the Supreme Lord is dependent upon anything else. Both God and the living entity are fully conscious. As living entities, we are conscious of our bodily existence. Similarly, the Lord is conscious of the gigantic cosmic manifestation. This is confirmed in the Vedas. Yasmin dhyo prithivi chantariksham vigyataram madikena vijaniyat ekam eva dvitiyam atmajyotis samradiho vacha sa iman lokan asrajata satyam jnanamanantam masango hyayam purusha purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. That kind of thing is like somewhat Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur-esque. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his commentaries, he does this at least relatively frequently from what I've seen, but he'll quote like the first line of several verses as pramana, or as evidence for a particular point. And he'll say you can refer to these verses, and he'll just quote the first line like that. All these Vedic conjunctions prove that both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the minute soul are individual. One is great and the other is small, but both of them are the cause of all causes, the corporeally limited and the universally unlimited. We should always remember that although we are equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in quality, we are never equal to Him in quantity. Persons with a small fund of intelligence, finding themselves equal in quality with God, foolishly think that they are equal in quantity also. Their intelligence is called avvishuddha buddhayaha, unpolished or contaminated intelligence. When such persons, after endeavoring hard for many lives to understand the supreme cause, are finally in actual knowledge of Krishna, Vasudeva, they surrender unto him. Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. Thus they become great Mahatmas, perfect souls. If one is fortunate enough to understand his relationship with God, knowing that God is great, Vibhu, whereas the living entity is small, Anu, he is perfect in knowledge. The individual exists in darkness when he thinks that he is the material body and that everything in relationship with the body belongs to him. This is called aham mama. Janasya moho yamaham mameti. This is illusion. One must give up his illusory conception and thus become fully aware of everything. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadama Hyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Shreshtam Manamapi Shachiputramatra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Gurupurim Mathurim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratitakripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripasindhuve Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This verse is talking about some pretty basic in the sense of fundamental principles of Krishna consciousness, which are very important to understand and which Srila Prabhupada very often emphasized. The brunt of Srila Prabhupada's preaching, as we're all aware, wasn't of Krishna Lila, wasn't of very high topics externally, you could say. Srila Prabhupada, of course, did also speak about those things in their proper, within the proper time, place, and circumstance, and certainly wrote about them. But the brunt of Srila Prabhupada's preaching, and really the brunt of preaching in general, should be topics like this. Atma Tattva. Atma Tattva meaning the truth about understanding the soul and the body and the difference between them. And the difference between, like Srila Prabhupada translates in the Bhagavatam, the difference between matter and spirit, or matter and spirit differentiated for the welfare of all. And this is really the underlying message of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is to differentiate matter and spirit for the welfare of all. So here we're specifically hearing about, this word Atma comes up. Atma is a word, like this verse says, that refers to either the Supreme Lord or the living entities. Krishna is known as Paramatma, and we're known as Atma. Atma in the real sense actually refers to a liberated soul. Jiva is the more proper word for a conditioned soul. Of course, Jiva is also used conventionally to refer to liberated souls as well. And Jivatma, combination of the two. So yes, here we're hearing about the Atman, and it's really a kind of a bit of an elaborate definition of the word Atma, this whole verse and purport. And of course, Srila Prabhupada extrapolates a little bit. So the Atma or the Jiva is a part, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivam Sho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhutaha. Srila Prabhupada quotes that in the first sentence of this purport. That the living entities are part of Krishna. They're Krishna's amshas. Krishna says, Mama Eva Amsha. These souls are they are certainly, actually, he says, Mama Eva Amsha. He says, they are certainly part of me. Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. And they are eternally separate from me. Not separate in the sense that we can't access Krishna or we're separated from him. But separate in the sense that we are eternally individuals, which also comes up in the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, but Sarve Vayamatah Param. I'm just like really spaced out today. Sarve Vayamatah Param. What's the Najatunas Natam Neme Janadipaha. What's the I always forget. Natvevaham jatunasam natam neme janadipa nachaiva nabhavishyamas sarve vayamatah param. Krishna says to Arjuna, all these kings, me and you and all these kings, we all exist eternally. We're all eternally individuals. We've lived before and we'll live again. And we're all individuals eternally. It also says, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanash Chaitananam, that there's one living entity who maintains those many living entities. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanash Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman, that there's one living entity in particular who maintains and is the source of all of the other living entities. Janmandyasya Yataha Vedanta Sutra says. So like Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna, he's the chief individual living entity, the leader of these subordinate living entities. And he quotes this from Katha Upanishad, this very nice little sutra, Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan, that the living entities are minute, very, very, very minute. They're, in fact, the most atomic of the atomic, Anoraniyan. And Krishna is the greatest of the greatest. He's Mahato Mahiyan. So, like Srila Prabhupada quotes in this purport, the living entity itself, you could say in a transcendental sense, physically, is smaller than, is the size, it's a 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. So it's very, even in of course physical is kind of a weird word to use in this regard when you're talking about the size of the jiva. But it's spiritually, physically very small. Yeah, whose hair is it? And have they been using shampoo so their hair is nice and thick? Approximately, let's say. Approximately 1/10,000th the size of the average hair. So the living entities are very small, physically you could say, but also in terms of their qualities. In the Padma Purana, and as quoted by Jiva Goswami in the in the Sandarbhas in general, he quotes these 18 intrinsic qualities, or Svarup Lakshana of the Jiva, which are things like basically what's being said here. I don't have all of them memorized, but they're basically like it says here. He's self-illuminating, he doesn't change, he's a knower. Well, actually, I'll explain that one actually, because that's actually not in the Padma Purana, but it is one of the qualities. And yeah, he's all-pervading. He's able to manifest himself to others, and others are able to be manifest to him. Like that, all these different qualities. And then there's one Sri Vaishnava scholar, Sri Vaishnava Acharya, named Jamatra Muni. So Jamatra Muni added 3. That he is a knower, a doer, and I think an enjoyer. I think it also says that he's an enjoyer. I think that's the 3rd one. So in total, Jiva Goswami presents 21 intrinsic qualities of the soul. And if you read them, just like this verse is saying, really they could all be qualities of Krishna. Every single one of them, practically speaking, except one of them is that he's Dasa bhuto harer eva nanya seva kadachana, that he's a servant of Hari and nobody else ever. So that one can't really be applied to Krishna, but it can be maybe applied to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But that's another discussion, perhaps. So the soul, being part and parcel of Krishna, has a number of the qualities of Krishna, but in a very minute kind of quantity. Krishna is always superior and the jivas are always inferior. The jivas are always subordinate. And so therefore, the qualities of the jiva are really actually dependent on Krishna. Like this verse says, Krishna is not dependent on anybody. He manifests himself, he's the most self-illuminating, in the sense that his qualities are always manifest or unmanifest as he likes. For instance, in Vaikuntha, Vishnu, he manifests certain qualities that are unmanifest, you could say, or manifest differently than Krishna in Vrindavan, or than Ram in Ayodhya, or than Krishna in Dwarka. Krishna, for the purpose of manifesting different pastimes and relishing different relationships with his devotees, manifests different qualities at different times according to his own choice. He's fully in control of himself. Evam sandarshita hyanga harina bhritya vashita svavashenapi krishnena yasyedam seishvaram vashe. Svavashenapi krishnena. Krishna's fully in control of himself. He has, he's full control. And yasyedam seishvaram vashe. And he's always in control of the universe as well, and all the devas and everybody else. Whereas the living entity is always subordinate. And in fact, the qualities that the living entity has, the svarup, the intrinsic qualities that the living entity has, are dependent upon the situation that the living entity is in order to manifest. Many of the, for instance, the quality of being a knower, for instance, requires a certain kind of Shakti to manifest, Jnana Shakti. And the quality of being a doer, for instance, requires some kind of Shakti to manifest, Bala Shakti or Kriya Shakti, whatever you know. And so, depending on the situation that the living entity is in, the most power really the living entity has is to choose who to serve. Many of the living entities, and really the constitutional position of the living entity is to serve Krishna. However, Purushav Prakritisto hi bhungte prakriti jan gunan karanam gunasangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. There's many living entities who, by association with the modes of material nature, having chosen to serve Maya, find themselves in many different situations. Sadasad yoni janmasu, good and bad births. So they've chosen to serve Maya. Some, Srila Prabhupada says, a vast minority, but a vast minority of the living entities in general is still a very great number. If you look, if you think about all the bacteria in this room right now, or hopefully it's not too much. It's a temple; it's supposed to be shuchi, it's supposed to be clean, but certainly there are many, and all the dust mites and all the spiders in the building, and the bugs and the termites and outside in the garden, what to speak of that, all the worms and the roly-polies. There's a lot of creatures and critters and jivas everywhere, practically unlimited living entities everywhere, even in Srila Prabhupada describes, and the Vedas describe, in fire, on the sun, on every single planet. There's practically unlimited living entities, so you can think, if that's the vast minority of living entities, okay, and then also what to speak of the unlimited universes in the material world. So if that's the vast minority of all of the living entities in existence, you can think how inconceivably large the number of living entities actually is that Krishna emanates. So, like I was saying, the qualities of the living entity is fully dependent. The only independence that we have is to choose who to serve, that we can serve Krishna or we can serve Maya. And then based on that choice, we use those different shaktis to manifest the different swarup, lakshana, the different qualities of the jiva. So jivas who are in Maya, jivas who are in the material world, they use Maya's jnana shakti to, for instance, know. To know things requires shakti for the living entity. And therefore, the living entities in the material world, they utilize Maya's jnana shakti, which is really not so... it's second class, definitely second class. So they can know some things, especially in relation to the material world, they can know some things. And we see that there's many people who have philosophical minds, they have very academic minds, scholarly minds, and they're intelligent from a material perspective. But to understand Krishna requires something else. One thing that it requires is Krishna's mercy. If we want to know Krishna, or if we want to know and act in Krishna consciousness, we have to be linked in yoga with Krishna. Yoga means to link. So we're all individual. Every one of us is eternally an individual. But we have a relationship with Krishna. And that's really why, for Krishna, that's really what he's all about, is relationships. That's why there are living entities in general. In the first place, there are living entities because Krishna likes to relish relationships. But he manifests this material world because there are certain souls who, at least for some time, don't really want to have a relationship with him. So he manifests this material world. Like Srila Prabhupada in this purport, he writes, everything material and spiritual, including earth, water, fire, sky, and the living entities. He manifests all that, and he says, okay, you can just go there for some time, and you can try it out. And so although he manifests, the entire thing comes from him, still he's aloof. Matsthani sarvabhutani na chaham teshu avastitah. He manifests it, it's his energy, and in one sense it's him, but he's aloof. There's in one of the Upanishads, it says, Avirbhava tirobhava svapade tishtati. That even though he appears and disappears in this material world, svapade tishtati. He always resides in his own abode. So Krishna has his own business. This material world is scratch really for him. It's something he has to do. Which is another interesting kind of thing, because Srila Prabhupada also says in this purport that Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is not dependent upon anyone else or anything else. But Krishna has this quality. This verse I quoted, Evam sandarshata hyanga harina bhritya vashyata svashenapi krishnena yasyedam seishwaram vashe. That although Krishna is in control of himself, although Krishna is in control of the entire universe, he feels this bhritya vashyata, this affection for his servants, such that he goes out of his way for them. This verse comes up at the beginning of the Damodar Lila. And it can be extrapolated, actually, in this context, that Krishna doesn't want to create the material world. He'd prefer that everybody just stayed in Goloka Vrindavan. But he really creates the material world in one sense out of love and affection for the living entities. Why? Because he sets up the material world in such a way that the living entities will, by force of time, we heard some chapters ago, that karma, generally speaking, leads one towards sattva. Why? Because when a living entity is in this world, absorbed in janasya moho yamaham mameti, when a living entity is in this world just absorbed in aham, me and everything in relation to my body, well, accepting the body as me, that I am this body and that everything in relation to this body is mine, like this verse is saying, then they have to suffer. Suresh likes that. Suresh approves. They have to suffer. Why? Not because Krishna's punishing them, but because that's just natural. Just like, for instance, if I stick my hand in fire, and my mother tells me, no, don't do it, that's not good. And I stick my hand in fire and I say, ooh, it hurts. And I don't say to my mother, hey, why'd you punish me for sticking my hand in the fire? It was my own choice. Fire is hot. Fire is, independent of my mother, fire is hot. It is what it is. So in the same way, our nature is that we're dependent. Our nature is that we're minute. Our nature is that we don't have full control. So we're entering into a situation thinking that, yes, I'm in control here. Yes, I'm the center of everything. But it's just not true. If I stick my hand into fire and I say, fire is cold, and I stick my hand into fire, the fire is hot. And in fact, I'll suffer more. Why? Because I was expecting that this fire is going to be cold. So I probably stuck my hand pretty deep in there. That, hey, I'm completely confident that fire is cold and very soothing. And so I stick my hand nice and deep into the fire. You're going to get burned pretty bad. In the same way, those who have avishuddha buddhi, like Srila Prabhupada quotes in this verse, unpolished or contaminated intelligence, they think that this world, janasya moho yamaha mameti, they think that I am this body and that everything in relation to this body is mine. But it's not true. It's just not true. So if you enter into a situation thinking that it's one thing, but it's actually another thing, and you're functioning on the basis of that misconception, and the basis of your happiness, the basis of your satisfaction is a complete misconception, you're going to suffer. Your happiness is not going to last. If you put all of your eggs in a basket with no bottom, the eggs are going to fall. So, we are, like Srila Prabhupada says in this purport, we are corporeally limited and universally unlimited. And so, we have to try as far as possible to give up our connection with Maya Shakti, give up our connection with the material world, and acting with Maya's Shakti. And Srila Jiva Goswami says that in absence of Maya, there is prema. Really, there's no real in-between state. Everything categorically is either Maya or Bhakti. And Bhakti means when the living entity becomes not dependent on Maya, not dependent on the material energy to act, but dependent on Krishna's internal energy to act. And then Krishna's internal energy, so for instance, the living entity's Jnana Shakti is not Maya's Jnana Shakti. It's Krishna's Jnana Shakti. It's Yoga Maya's Jnana Shakti. The internal energy is Jnana Shakti. And therefore he can know Krishna. He can know his relationship with Krishna. He can know things about Krishna. He can understand who he is and who Krishna is. Not fully, but he can understand to an extent. The main thing he can understand is the relationship. And so when a living entity does that, when a living entity says, hey, I don't want to be connected with this energy anymore. I want to be with Krishna. Then Krishna's internal energy gives him a suitable body, gives him suitable senses, gives him suitable everything, such that he can engage in whatever relationship with Krishna he wants. Krishna's internal energy, well, first I'll say Krishna's external energy is extremely limited, actually. And when the soul becomes covered by that external energy, the qualities of the soul, like for instance, not undergoing changes, avikriyaha. The soul being covered by the material energy gives up that quality. It appears, or it accepts a situation in which it appears as if it's changing. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya. Just like clothes. It's always taking off and putting on different clothes. So it temporarily, or we could say externally, renounces that chit, that unchanging, that sat, that unchanging quality, renounces it. Similarly, chit. It renounces chit. Externally, at least. The chit becomes covered. Chit in the sense that the living entity, the Atma itself, can know to quite a significant degree. But in the material world, you see there's many people who really just don't know much. And even the smartest people, they really don't know all that much. Their knowledge is very limited. Not just their knowledge, but their consciousness is very limited. And what to speak of Ananda, which is probably the most prominent one. The living entity is Chidanandatmaka, it's always blissful. But in this material world, the living entity renounces that bliss. It renounces that eternal happiness. Why? Because it accepts this suffering condition of life. Padam padam yad vipadam natesham. It accepts this way of life which is predominated by danger, predominated by fear, predominated by anxiety. And so accepting that, it renounces the natural bliss of the living entity, the natural bliss of being engaged in devotional service to Krishna. So the process of Krishna consciousness means becoming, like Srila Prabhupada says in this purport, a Mahatma. There's Atma and then there's Mahatma, Maha-Atma. Every one of us is an Atma. Every one of us is a soul. But to become a Mahatma, to become a great soul, is to become a devotee of Krishna. Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. And such great souls are very rare. Why? Because again, this material world is predominated by this idea, janasya moho yam aham mameti. This is like the Mahavakya of the material world, the what do you say, the Paribhas Sutra. In every Shastra there's a Paribhas Sutra. Paribhas Sutra means a sutra or a little phrase which is the emperor, the king. So the Paribhas Sutra of the entire material world is aham mameti. That this body is mine and everything or this body is me and everything in relationship to this body is mine. So Srila Prabhupada says one must give up his illusory conception and thus become fully aware of everything. And really, the soul is much more flexible than we think it is. When one gives up the illusion of aham mameti, then one can really have almost whatever they want. I mean, the internal energy of Krishna can actually give a soul two bodies. At least two, by that we hear of two bodies, but theoretically it could maybe even give more. That actually in the spiritual world, excuse me, a devotee can serve in two different rasas. A devotee could even, my understanding at least, is a devotee could even serve in one body in Vaikuntha and in another body in Goloka. One can serve in two different rasas at once. One could serve as a gopi and one can serve as a gopa. Can have two different bodies. So like this, the internal energy of Krishna is very flexible and the soul itself is very flexible. Much more flexible than we think. Mayam chadadapashrayam. The Maya dhakshena prakriti, well, that's not exactly applicable here. But Mayam chadadapashrayam. The Maya, Mahamaya, the Shakti of Krishna is fully under his control. He can do whatever he damn well pleases with it. He can make the material energy look spiritual, and he can make the spiritual energy look material, as he does in Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, the material energy, the spiritual energy is made to look material. And that's how many people understand it. That this is just, love between, some mundane kind of love between boys and girls. Or that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Svavashenapi Krishnena, Yasedam Seshvaram Vashe, fully in control of himself, fully in control of the Ishvara of all Ishvaras, Sarveshvareshvara, is crying and running from his mother who's chasing him with a stick. So Krishna is fully in control of everything. He's fully in control of all of his Shaktis. And if we can somehow or other, by the process of Krishna consciousness, link ourselves with him and get as far away from Maya as possible, internally and externally, then we'll be rewarded, so to speak, accordingly. In the sense that we'll be given a suitable body, we'll be given suitable senses to engage in service to Krishna eternally. Free from suffering, free from anxiety, free from fear, free from anything, from all anarthas, only arthas. Anartha means that which is unwanted, that which is invaluable. But artha means that which is very valuable, that which is wanted. Prema dhana. Prema dhana means the wealth of prema. Everybody wants to be rich, but even the richest man in the entire world is actually the poorest, a beggar. Because he doesn't have prema dhana. Prema dhana is real wealth. Why? Because you keep it when you die. The basic kind of qualification of, something to be significant, that it lasts after you die. But also, not only is it just something that you keep, something that's external, but it's actually the highest achievement. The highest achievement because it's one's constitutional position. For the Atma, or for a liberated soul, really there's nothing to achieve. For Krishna, there's nothing to achieve. Achievement is only in relation to the material world. Why? Because once you go down, you can only go up. So the living entities in the spiritual world, there's no down. There's no anything besides devotional service to Krishna. That's the real world. We talk about the spiritual world, we talk about the material world, and sometimes people say, the real world. The real world is a spiritual world. This is just some dark corner that nobody really likes to talk about, like it's a sketchy kind of part of town. Really, the spiritual world is the real world. It's not like, everybody's thinking, there's two different worlds or something like that, or there's two real worlds. The spiritual world is the real world. This place is the anomaly. The entire material world is an anartha, including our bodies, including our material conceptions. Everything is an anartha and is fit to be rejected completely. So that's something which is being presented in this verse. If there's any comments or questions. Yes, Prabhu.
The list here of things that we are along with the Supreme Atma, there's a few that puzzle me. I don't see how I am the cause of all causes. I don't see how I am
touch on that.
all-pervading. And this other one, what is the one? Always uncovered?
Yeah.
Because that's even in your class you say, when we become covered by Avaranatmaka Shakti, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I can just go through them one by one.
How am I the cause of all causes?
How are you the cause of all causes? Well, I think Srila Prabhupada touches on it in the purport, where he says, because the living entity has Krishna's qualities in minute quantity. So Krishna is the cause of all causes. He's like the capital C, cause of all causes. And the living entity is the cause of a certain amount of causes.
Yes.
In the sense that he's the he can be a cause of a certain amount of causes. And in relation to the body, Srila Prabhupada quotes that he's the foundation and shelter of everything. And then in the footnote, he says that without the spirit soul, the body cannot exist. So in that sense, he's the cause of all causes in relation to the body and things in relation to the body.
Yeah. This comes up, or it came up in the editing of chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, because one of the qualities mentioned there of the soul, because it's all a similar thing, is all pervading, and it means that the souls are present everywhere. In other words, each soul is not all pervading, but as collectively they're all pervading.
Right.
And that makes sense. And as you know, collectively we're the cause, because you take each individual soul. So that I think it's a problem of the language.
Oh, I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Yes. What is it? Yasedam dharyate jagat. What is it? Right?
Which one is it?
Yayedam dharyate jagat. That the living entities are maintaining the material world.
Yeah. So it's a question of, at a certain point you have to switch gears and say, okay, as a whole, we are all pervading. Everywhere you look, there are living entities. In the atom, there's a living entity, dormant, whatever. I mean, that's how it has to be. So that's what I think. Some of these, and then the thing of always uncovered, and that was, I don't know, that's in here, but I can't find it right now. Oh yeah, here, the last one. They have nothing to do with the material body. Okay, that's clear, and therefore they are always uncovered. But they think they're covered. Is that the idea? We're acting that.
Yeah, I mean, they're always. I think. Because how Jiva Goswami describes it, and also Sridhar Swami describes it this way, is that that certain qualities are unmanifest. That nothing can taint the soul, but when the soul is in a certain, in any given position, certain besides devotional service, certain qualities can become manifest and unmanifest. So I guess it doesn't seem to me like it's covered, as if it's maybe, because covered to me it implies some kind of taintedness. But perhaps I'm wrong. This is just kind of my speculation. Does that maybe sound?
I mean, the thing is, it's clear that our awareness of Krishna is not manifest. It's covered. Oh, I'm sorry. Because well, what happens when you become a conditioned soul? You got the Maya has the Avaranatmaka Shakti and the Prakshedatmaka Shakti, the covering and the throwing potency. So your knowledge of yourself and everything else is covered. So in a sense that it's puzzling how they can all be. I mean, asango heyam purusha. That was quoted in the purport. That's we're never really associated with the material energy, right? Asango heyam, but we think we are. We're dreaming we are, and therefore that's the illusion.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's. But anyway.
Yeah, I think it's probably just a more so probably a problem of language. Not that I don't think I couldn't think of a better way to word it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Bringing up that what I started with. The original translation in the second chapter was, and they are all pervading, and it was changed to present everywhere. Now you'll see it's present everywhere. As a whole, we're all pervading, but each individual soul is not all pervading.
I see. Chad.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. So
Krishna.
I had the same kind of confusion, especially since Srila Prabhupada mentions multiple times that we are the Jivatma is qualitatively the same. Qualitatively. So quantitatively different, but qualitatively the same. So it would pertain to all things? I mean, theoretically? I mean, so if you're qualitatively the same, anyway.
Well, qualitatively the same in the sense that we're the same substance. We're spirit, But quantitatively, and we have a number of the qualities of Krishna, but we have them in minute quantities. So just like we were saying, like for instance, Bhagavan, like Shadaishwarya Purna, Krishna has full in 6 opulences. So one of those opulences, let's just take like fame, for instance. One of those opulences is fame. Krishna is the most famous. Everybody knows God. Like there's nobody who like doesn't know God. Even if you don't believe in him, you know about him. But the living entities can only be, I mean, how famous can a living entity be? Not so famous. I mean, even that fame itself is really only in relation to the body. The living entity itself is not famous, so to speak. So it's like that. It's like we're qualitatively one in the sense that we're the same substance and we have some of the same qualities, but quantitatively, the degree of those qualities is significantly different.
Would it not include the things that we're discussing too, though? Right? That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, surely it would include, and that's what that's what this verse is talking about, is that the living entity is, let's see, their individual knows. Yeah, foundation or shelter of everything. Krishna is the foundation or shelter of everything, whereas the living entity is the foundation and shelter of everything in relation to the body. The body itself, like Srila Prabhupada says, without the shelter of the spirit soul, the material body cannot exist. So it's the same quality, but in a much different degree. Yeah. It's also brought up that the living entity is kshetragya, and this word actually comes up in the verse, kshetragya, that he's the knower of the field of the body. Whereas Krishna is sarva kshetragya, he knows all the bodies, not just all the bodies, but everything else too. So it's, yeah, same quality, but to a very significantly different degree. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Anything more on Zoom? Grantharaja Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.